Okay, today we're going to be talking about the characteristics of life. We went over this on Tuesday, August 20th. Characteristics of life. Biology, what is it? So, biology is the study of life. During this course, we're going to be basically discussing anything that is living, mostly related to the human body. So, what does it mean to be living? That's kind of the big thing we're going to be talking about. What are some things or characteristics that scientists look for when they're trying to determine whether something is living? So if I looked at a rock and I looked at a worm, can I use a list of characteristics to help me understand whether one is living or not? What we discussed in classes, like let's say we had an alien come from outer space or we went to another planet. What are some characteristics that scientists might use in the future to help figure out, is this living or not? So, biology is a two-part word. Bio, right here, means life. Ology, Logy, is the root, and that means the study of. Okay, so biology is the study of life. If I had frantatology, that would be the study of Mr. Franta. If I had sociology, that would be the study of social issues or social societies around our country or in the world. Genetic code and development. So to be considered living, an organism must, one, be based on a genetic code. So this is going to be DNA. We'll talk about this a lot this year toward the second semester. So you might have seen a double helix shape or stuff like on a crime show. The DNA is the building block or the blueprint to develop any form of life on Earth or how we know it. Second, an organism as small as a bacteria all the way up to an elephant must grow and develop. So this is going to mean you're going to start off as a baby in humans. You're going to get a little bigger, you're 3 or 4. You might be able to pick up some symbols or play with a musical instrument. As you get older, you might graduate from high school, and then you get older in your 20s, 30s, and so on. So over that time, the example I use is like eating. So a baby needs to nurse from their mother or get formula. After about 12 months, they can start eating some solid foods, stuff like milk will come in a little after that. The baby's system is not designed to digest milk from a cow or another animal till about that point in time. When you're about 2 or 3, you can start feeding yourself, and you're not really that messy. And then when you get to like 7 or 8, you're starting to get to that point where you can make your own sandwich and start feeding yourself a little more. When you get to this point, kind of being in high school, the expectation is that you can start shopping for yourself. And when you get to this point, like in your 20s or 30s, the expectation is that you can support yourself. You can have a job, buy your own groceries, live by yourself or with another loved one or roommates. So you're growing, your body's getting bigger, it's developing, it can do more cool things. But at the same time, it's also developing what it can do. Reproduce and acquire energy. So to be able to be considered living, as far as we know, you must be able to reproduce. So one would be asexually. The other one would be sexually. There are 2 different ways to reproduce. And we're going to talk a little about that in a second. Fourth reason or fourth characteristic of life is going to be acquire energy. So we have a picture of a pizza here. So acquiring energy for most animals would be either eating a plant or eating another organism that has gotten plants. We'll talk about that a little later in ecology in a couple of units. But for the most part, it's going to be eating food. If you're a mushroom, you're going to kind of like break down food. If you're a detritivore or decomposer, you're going to eat dead things. And we'll talk a little about that in the future. So getting back to how animals reproduce. There are 2 different ways animals can reproduce. Asexually is for really simple organisms. You're going to be like one cell. So this would be like bacteria. A single cell organism makes a copy of itself. So basically think of it as like I have a cell. It doubles the amount of material it has, and then it's going to split apart. Now I have 2. They're identically equal or identical copies of the original cell. One's the original cell, one's the duplicate. These organisms have found that it's just a lot easier and a lot faster to do it that way. Sexual reproduction means that you have a mommy and a daddy. You get half of your genetic material from mom, the other half from dad. We get more genetic diversity or more combinations, which gives us our different looks. So you might look a lot like your brother or your sibling or your sister, but you're not an exact copy of your parents. You might have some, like your dad's nose and your mom's type of hair. Okay, that means things get mixed up, and that kind of helps us in the long run. We'll talk about that. So this little cute kitty or this dog can't mate together, but they both have a mommy and a daddy. Respond to number 5, you need to be able to respond to your environment. So this is like a stimulus/response. So in humans, we sometimes get scared at movies. Ooh, big bad man. Plants will react. So if you don't give them enough water, they start to shrivel and go like this. They get water. Whoop. So we'll talk a little more about that with homeostasis. If you get hot, you want to pull your hand away from the burn. Things are loud. You go, so you're reacting to your environment. Homeostasis. Basically, we want to maintain a stable internal environment. This can be a couple different ways. Big one would be temperature. That's the easiest one to kind of discuss. So if it gets cold, we shiver, okay? And that's to kind of bring our body temperature back up to normal, okay? If it gets too hot, we start to sweat. It helps to cool down our body. And that's right here. Human bodies are very boring. We like to keep it at 98.6 degrees. We get too hot, 100, 101, mom starts freaking out. Take the medication, bring the temperature down. That's a good thing, okay? You get it to about 102, 104, it can be life-threatening. You can die at that point, okay? And on the flip side, if your body temperature drops below 98 degrees, that's called hypothermia. You can die from that too. That's one reason why you don't go swimming in Lake Michigan in the middle of January, okay? Because that just sucks the heat out of you, and your body begins to shut down. And number 8, your body needs to be made of cells. That is the smallest unit of life that we know. So this can come in the form of two ways. Unicellular is 1. So think of it like a unicycle. Person riding a bicycle with only one wheel. Multicellular is going to be 2 or more. Okay, 2 or more cells. And number 7, organisms need to change over time as a group. So this would be called evolution. So you have something that looks like a horse, small horse, and it gets into a big horse. We'll talk about it later. The relative whale is actually something that looks like this, a 4-legged creature. If you actually pull a whale apart with all of its bones, it has 2 little legs. They're not attached. You don't see them. They're still there. You guys have a tailbone. Yeah, you don't have a tail sticking out of you, but you do have a tailbone. And it's a couple of bones. Looks like a little tail, but it's there because you're related to some other animals that had a tail at one point. So those are the 8 characteristics of life scientists will use to figure out if something's living or not. Levels of organization. This is going to be something we're going to talk about more this year as we get into body systems. So the smallest unit of life is going to be a cell. Put a couple cells together, you get tissue. Put 2 or more types of tissue together, you're going to get an organ. Put a couple different organs together, you get organ systems, and you put multiple organ systems together, so respiratory system, blood system, nervous system, and many others, cardiovascular system, you get an organism, like, for example, a human. Okay? Hope this has been helpful. We'll see everybody else in class.